Welcome back to the deep dive. We love taking these journeys into some of the most perplexing, sometimes really bizarre corners of, well, human experience and just the world around us. Today, we're definitely not just dipping our toes in. We are plunging headfirst, I think, into a truly baffling, everyday kind of mystery. It started as this seemingly minor annoyance, but it really escalated into something genuinely unsettling before revealing its surprising and, I promise you, pretty hilarious truth. So our mission today is to unpack this really peculiar case from the quiet heart of Bavaria in Germany. It's a story that really serves as a powerful reminder, maybe a comical one, of how small, seemingly insignificant things can cause just widespread disruption, fear, and, yeah, even a touch of genuine existential dread. It's a narrative arc that's going to take us from, creeping suspicion all the way to this shocking aha moment that will probably leave you chuckling. So I have to ask you, our listener.
Have you ever been just absolutely convinced that some persistent minor annoyance in your life, that weird creak, the flickering light, maybe a smell that comes and goes, was actually something far more sinister, something complex, or even malicious? Because we're diving into a story today that proves sometimes the most terrifying explanations we build up in our heads are actually the least dramatic. Okay, let's get into this. All right, picture this. We're heading over to Schwabach. It's this charming, picturesque town in southern Germany. And we're not talking about some spooky castle or ancient ruins here. No, our story unfolds in a perfectly normal, quiet apartment building. You know the kind of place where daily life just hums along pretty predictably. Neighbors say hello, maybe chat about the weather. The biggest drama might be, I don't know, someone getting a new washing machine delivered. It's a place of routine, comfort, peace. But that everyday normalcy was about to be completely shattered. For several nights in a row, deep into the night, like way past midnight, this relentless phantom doorbell ringing started plaguing multiple residents.
And it wasn't just like one buzz you could ignore. No, it was continuous, insistent, and coming from multiple apartment doors, like a phantom calling card, just echoing through the night.
Yeah, and what's really fascinating there, and I think it says a lot about, human psychology, is how quickly a disturbance like that, especially one that invades your home, how quickly it can turn into something really unsettling when you just don't know the source. You might try to rationalize it at first, where just a doorbell, maybe a prank, maybe someone hit the wrong button.
Yeah.
But when it keeps happening night after night, middle of the night, and you can't figure out why, well, it just eats away at your sense of peace, your security. Right there in your own home. It's not just the noise itself. It's that feeling of your personal space, your sanctuary, being invaded by something unseen, something you can't explain. It's a really fundamental intrusion. It hits you right where you're supposed to feel safest.
And the psychological impact was, it sounds like it was huge, right? You mentioned residents being driven almost mad, experiencing real existential dread from a doorbell. It seems so trivial on the surface. It sounds like the start of a horror movie, but the monster isn't, Freddy Krueger. It's just ding dong.
Exactly. And it makes you wonder, doesn't it? Why is a phantom doorbell in some ways almost scarier than thinking there's a ghost? With a ghost, we often imagine there's a story, right? A motive, some kind of narrative. You can project intent onto it. Maybe it's a restless spirit, or there was some tragedy. You can almost try to understand it, maybe even, bargain with it. Okay, ghost, fine, haunt away, but maybe not at 3 a.m.
Right, schedule your haunting.
Yeah, exactly. But a relentless, unseen doorbell ringer, that feels like pure chaos. It feels irrational. There's no motive you can grab onto, no story. Its only goal seems to be, what? Keeping you awake, mild inconvenience, and that makes it somehow more infuriating, more psychologically damaging. It attacks the very idea of home as a safe space. And because there's no rational why, it feels like there's no rational defense either. Our brains just hate that vacuum, We crave patterns, explanations. When there aren't any, we tend to fill in the blanks with, often with the worst possibilities.
It's sort of brilliant in a twisted way if you're the tormentor. Okay, so let's dig into the specifics here.
Yeah.
Because this wasn't just a one-off thing. The persistence of this phantom, it was really something else. We're talking continuous ringing, often starting long after midnight. Not just once or twice, but relentlessly for, significant chunks of time. Can you imagine being jolted awake again and again? Heart pounding, mind racing, just to find an empty hallway. And here's the really weird part. It wasn't just one doorbell going off. The sources say multiple bells were buzzing, sometimes together, sometimes one after another, like this creepy symphony of annoyance. When I first read that, my mind immediately jumped to, elaborate conspiracies. How could one person or thing be that coordinated, that fast, that quiet? I was picturing someone darting between doors, like a phantom pianist playing a doorbell concerto. And the poor residents, right, dragged out of bed, groggy, furious, probably getting more scared each time. They'd stumble to the door, peek through the people, hold their breath, and nothing. Absolutely no one there.
They'd crack the door open, check the courtyard, the street, completely silent. Still. The only sound is their own heart hammering away. It must have been maddening, turning their nights into this awful loop of being woken up, investigating, and finding absolutely zero answers. You'd feel totally helpless.
Mm-hmm. And that constant absence of anyone visible, that's what really took it from just a nuisance to, well, psychological torment. It might sound a bit like Klingelstreich, which is the German term for ding-dong ditch, basically.
Like kids playing a prank.
Exactly. But this clearly wasn't that. What's really key here is that the perpetrator was never seen, left no trace. This wasn't kids giggling and running away. The sheer elusiveness, it suggested a level of sophistication, something that really started to unnerve people. It felt like maybe a master prankster or, maybe even something spectral, like a ghost ninja, as you put it.
Yeah.
It just defied logical explanation. And all those sleepless nights, combined with how mysterious it was, it just wore people down. They probably started wondering if they were imagining it or if something unseen was really targeting them. And then the shared experience, that just amplified the fear like crazy. It became this communal nightmare. We know one resident, Lisa, she said she tried to just ignore it one night, hoping it'd stop. But then her sister-in-law, who lived upstairs, called her, totally frantic, asking if her bell was ringing too.
Oh, wow. That's chilling.
Isn't it? Imagine that moment. You realize you're not crazy, but also that you're definitely not alone in being targeted. It goes from a personal problem to this collective siege. And that kind of shared confusion, the lack of answers, it started breeding suspicion. Deep suspicion between neighbors, who could be doing this? Is it the quiet guy downstairs? Is it the woman who complains about noise? Suddenly, friendly chats turn cold. People start looking at each other differently. That psychological element, it really started tearing at the very fabric of this little community. Trust just evaporated, replaced by this creeping unease. Their homes felt unsafe, and their neighbors, potential culprits.
And then, to make it even more baffling, there was this crucial detail. Get this. The building had a motion detector light in the entry area, and it wasn't even being triggered. Think about that. Whatever was doing this wasn't just stealthy. It was either literally invisible or it was so incredibly small, so sneaky, it could somehow get past modern security tech without setting it off. When I read that, my mind just went, okay, what is this? A tiny drone. Something else entirely. It just adds this layer of impossibility.
That detail is absolutely critical for understanding why people were so scared. And it really speaks to our need for control, for things to make sense. If even a motion sensor, something designed to pick up movement, isn't going off, well, of course, people start thinking way outside the box. When logic fails us, our minds really struggle with that ambiguity, that unknown state. We find it deeply uncomfortable. So we start constructing explanations, right? Anything to fill the void. And apparently, the speculation got pretty wild. We heard theories ranging from disgruntled gnomes, maybe they didn't like the garden layout.
Gnomes can be very particular.
Baffled, apparently. Or even tiny mischievous fairies just having a laugh. And these theories, however strange they sound, they show how desperate people were for any explanation. It makes the tormentor seem impossibly powerful or supernatural or just completely beyond human understanding, which is, of course, terrifying when it's happening right outside your door. It's almost like pareidolia, seeing patterns where there are none, especially when you're stressed and scared.
Okay, so nights of this. Sleepless frustration, fear mounting, people getting genuinely spooked. The residents finally did the sensible thing. They talked to each other, realized it wasn't just them, and they called for backup. They called the police, or as they'd say in German, the Polizei. You can just picture it, right? Two very serious-looking German police officers pull up. They're probably thinking, okay, noise complaint, party got out of hand, domestic dispute maybe. Little did they know they were about to walk into something straight out of, not the usual police blotter, a mystery that defied all their training.
Yeah, this is a turning point, definitely. Calling the police is that plea for order, for resolution from outside authority. It escalates it from a personal thing to a community crisis needing official help. The police, they represent logic, procedure, control in a situation that's become totally illogical, totally out of control for the residents. But police are trained for tangible stuff, right? Evidence, suspects, motives. How do you handle a phantom doorbell ringer? Their job is to find rational explanations, restore order. But here, they're walking into something that almost seems to mock that very idea. They must have arrived with a bit of skepticism, ready to mediate something minor.
And here's where it gets just incredible. The real peak of this whole thing. The officers are standing there, right? In the hallway, talking to the residents, trying to get the story straight, figure out what's going on, maybe asking questions like, are you sure you didn't see anything? Suddenly, almost like it was planned, the doorbells start ringing again. Yeah, right there. While the police are standing there, not just one, multiple bells echoing through the building.
Oh, the sheer audacity. I mean, that timing, it's almost theatrical, isn't it? To do it right in front of the police, that takes it beyond a prank. That's like a performance piece about how fragile security is, how helpless authority can seem. It's a deliberate act of defiance, almost mocking them. Like the culprit is saying, see, bring your badges, bring your logic. I'm still here. You can't touch me. It feels like a mastermind move. And the police were, well, completely baffled. Understandably, they could hear it clear as day. The ringing was undeniable. But they looked, and absolutely nobody at the door. So their training kicks in, they do a full search, sweep the courtyard, check every corner of the stairwell, down into the basement, looking for anyone hiding, any weird wiring, anything. Checking behind bins, looking up at windows. Did they find anything? Nothing and no one. Their professional doubt must have just evaporated, replaced by sheer bewilderment. You have solid sound evidence, zero visual. What do?
Can you imagine how the residents felt then? It's like, okay, not only is this still happening, and it's happening right in front of the police, and they can't stop it. It must have validated all their worst fears. This wasn't just kids. This wasn't normal. Lisa, the resident we mentioned, she put it perfectly. You hear the ringing all the time, but you don't see anyone. It was just creepy. And that word creepy, it just sums up that deep unease, right?
Good.
That feeling you're dealing with something unnatural, something that doesn't follow the rules. You feel watched, targeted, totally powerless.
Mm-hmm. That really captures the culprit's ultimate power play, even if it was unintentional power. They were showing, effectively, complete control, invading homes with just sound, messing with sleep, summoning the authorities, and staying completely invisible. It's an invasion of privacy and peace that's somehow worse because it's intangible. You can't fight sound directly. The fear isn't just about what might be there. It's the horrible realization that something can mess with your reality, your security, without ever being caught or even identified. That kind of psychological pressure, feeling helpless against an unknown force, it really wears you down. It erodes your sense of safety in your own home, even in your own mind. It really did feel like some kind of mastermind was at work, orchestrating this chaos from the shadows.
So, okay, all the logical options are gone. Police are stumped, residents are sleep-deprived, probably jumping at every little sound, maybe even suspecting each other. They're at their absolute wits' end. So a final, maybe desperate decision is made. The police, along with one of the residents, maybe Lisa, maybe someone else who is just determined, they decide to examine the source more closely. They stop looking broadly and focus right in on that metal belt plate on the wall. You know, the panel with all the buttons for the different apartments, the actual scene of the crime, if you will, the place where the phantom was. Interfacing with the physical world. I can picture them leaning in close, maybe with a flashlight, just scanning every inch. What are they even looking for at this point? Ectoplasm, tiny gnome footprints, some kind of weird symbol scratched into the metal. Their minds, like ours probably, were still maybe half expecting something extraordinary, something weird to explain it all.
It's that classic move in a mystery, isn't it? When the big picture search fails, you go micro. Back to the point of contact. It shows they're trying one last time to find something tangible, however small, however overlooked. They've kind of moved past the ghosts and masterminds, maybe, and are just looking for a flaw in the system, some tiny physical thing that could explain the impossible. It's a return to just looking really closely, empirically. What is actually here? Hoping the answer isn't grand, but maybe hidden in plain sight, in the tiny details. That shift in focus is key. They're stripping away assumptions.
And then they found it, finally. A clue. Right there on the surface of the bell plate, glimmering slightly under the flashlight beam, they found a slime trail. Okay, my mind immediately goes, slimy ghost. Ectoplasm. Is this a demon from some, like, gooey dimension leaving its sticky mark? The mystery suddenly seems even weirder, even more bizarre. Who knew the supernatural could be so viscous?
Chuckles. It's funny how our minds leap there, isn't it? Straight to the dramatic. It just shows how much we want a story, a big explanation. But this is where, the mundane often just completely upends the fantastical. Sometimes with incredible comedic timing. Finding a slime trail, yes, it's a huge clue. Finally, physical evidence. But interpreting that clue, that's where the real aha moment comes. It forces this radical shift away from sinister, away from supernatural, towards something much more grounded, more organic. The expectation for a complex answer to match the complex fear is about to be just beautifully, hilariously subverted.
Okay, so they see the slime trail, they follow it with their eyes, tracking its path across the metal plate, and then they saw it.
Yeah.
The actual culprit, the tiny, terrifying in its effect agent of chaos. The thing that tormented an entire building, driven people mad, baffled the police. It was a slug. Pause, followed by a chuckle that turns into genuine laughter. I kid you not. A slug. A Nacktschnecke, as the Germans say. A naked snail. It was just slowly, methodically sliding its slimy little body up and down the bell plate, crawling over the electrical sensors and just repeatedly triggering the bells for different apartments. The mystery. Saul, the phantom. Identifying, not a ghost, not a gnome, not some tech-savvy ninja, just a very, very slow-moving mollusk.
Laughing along. It has to be the greatest anticlimax in the history of mystery, doesn't it? All that fear, the paranoia, the suspicion, the ghost ninja theories, the baffled police. And it's a common garden slug. It's the kind of reveal that just instantly flips a switch from dread to just uncontrollable, relieved laughter. It completely deflates all that built-up tension. And it proves that sometimes the simplest explanation isn't just right, it's also the most absurdly brilliant. The sheer, unassuming power of this tiny creature to cause so much chaos is actually kind of remarkable in its own way. It just perfectly highlights how our perception, fueled by fear and lack of information, can turn the most harmless thing into this terrifying enemy.
It's so simple, but so effective. This slug, totally unintentionally, was like a genius of disruption, a tiny anarchist. Didn't need a plan, just needed an interesting wall to slime its way up.
Absolutely. A genius of disruption. Exactly. It operated with perfect impunity because I had no idea what it was doing. No malice, no grand scheme, no alibi needed, couldn't be interrogated. It wasn't trying to torment anyone. It was just sliding on a thing, following its slug instincts. And by doing that, it brought, as you said, a building full of humans to their knees. It's not just a slug. It's this tiny, slimy, revolutionary, unintentionally dismantling order and security one doorbell at a time just by being a slug. It's kind of a powerful reminder of how simple actions can have these incredibly complex ripple effects, especially when we view them through that lens of fear and confusion. Really makes you rethink what counts as a threat.
Okay, the aftermath is almost as good as the reveal itself. The best part has to be the official police statement. Once they ID'd the perpetrator, the Schwabach police released this statement that is just wonderfully specific and has this amazing dry humor. They said the animal had been, and this is a direct quote, brought down to size, taught about its territory boundaries, and placed on a nearby stretch of grass.
Yeah.
Can you imagine writing that police report? Suspect, species Arianidae, apprehended, instructed on zoning regulations, relocated, case closed. Oh, the sheer beautiful deadpan bureaucracy. So perfectly German, isn't it? To basically give a slug a formal warning. Read it its rights. You have the right to remain slimy. Anything you ooze may be used against you in a court of law.
Respect property lines, Mr. Slug. Exactly. It just adds this layer of wonderful absurdity. It turns what could have been slight embarrassment for the police into this charming, memorable resolution. And the proof was right there, too. Lisa, the resident, confirmed it later. She said, "You could even see the slime trail it had made as it crawled over the sensors. The unmistakable evidence of the tiny bandit, no longer scary, just kind of amazing."
And get this, it turns out this isn't just some isolated Bavarian weirdness, this slug-powered doorbell ringing. Apparently it's a thing. A few years before this, a woman in Essex, England, went through the exact same ordeal. Doorbell ringing, middle of the night, driving her crazy. She finally checked her security camera footage and, yep, there it was on video.
Hey.
A slug slowly crawling over the doorbell button. It's a recurring international phenomenon.
Hey, see, I'm telling you, it's a global movement, an organized slug uprising. They're coordinating attacks via slime mail. First the doorbells, sowing chaos and sleeplessness. What's next? Self-checkout machines, triggering unexpected item and bagging area worldwide, bringing commerce to a halt.
The slimy revolution.
We've ignored the gastropod threat for too long. But seriously, the fact it happens elsewhere just points to simple science, right? Their moist bodies, the slime. It can be just conductive enough to complete the circuit on certain types of doorbell buttons, especially sensitive ones. What's an electrical contact to us is just an interesting surface to a slug. Maybe a bit salty. Who knows?
Okay, that's a terrifying thought, the checkout machines. But wow, what a journey this deep dive has been. Started as this really spooky mystery. Potential ghost, maybe a malicious human causing fear, dividing a community. And it ends with a very precise German police officer gently relocating a mollusk with, instructions about its territory.
It's just such a brilliant metaphor, though, isn't it? For perspective, for life even. It perfectly captures that idea. What one person sees as a terrifying sleepless night, a slug just sees as a particularly interesting vertical surface to lick. It just hammers home how much our perception shapes our reality, how fear and uncertainty can twist the completely mundane into something monstrous. It's not just a funny story, it really illustrates things like, cognitive biases, maybe the fundamental attribution error blaming intent instead of circumstance, or just ambiguity and tolerance needing any answer, even a scary one, rather than accepting we don't know or it's simple. Our minds are great at building these scary narratives when we lack clear info. And sometimes, yeah, the thing causing all that stress, it really is just a dumb slug doing dumb slug things. No malice, no plan, just biology. And we project all this meaning onto it. Our perception filter gets cranked way up under stress, distorting the ordinary. Makes you want to look at your own worries differently, maybe.
Definitely. So this deep dive really gave us this surprising, kind of humbling conclusion. The monster under the bed wasn't a monster. It was just a very, very slow, slightly sticky prankster, just exploring. It's a great reminder that sometimes the simplest answer is the most astonishing one, and often the most relieving.
And that leaves us with a really interesting question to chew on, doesn't it? A thought for all of us as we go about our lives. What other invisible forces, maybe, are causing us stress or frustration or anxiety when maybe their real nature is much simpler, maybe even comical, or just neutral? How often do our own fears come from just misinterpreting something ordinary, assigning intent where there's none, overlooking the obvious, simple truth right in front of us? What tiny, overlooked things in your world might be quietly causing ripples of minor chaos, just waiting for you to shift your perspective and see them for what they really are? Maybe something less scary, maybe even strangely mundane. The world's full of these little mysteries, just waiting for us to look closer, maybe with a more skeptical, definitely a more open mind.
A fantastic thought to end on. Observe, question, maybe find the humor in it. Because sometimes the biggest perceived threats are just little slugs. And knowing that, it can be pretty liberating. Join us next time for another deep dive into the unexpected.